Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
Thanksgiving dinner. There were 10 of us crowded around the long oak table in my sister-in-law's dining room. Clinking glasses, passing plates, the low hum of half-drunk conversation. The house smelled like roasted turkey and cinnamon apples, the kind of scent that's supposed to feel like home. It didn't. I was seated at one end of the table, directly across from my wife, Jenna. She was glowing, one of those carefully curated glows that come from 2 hours of getting ready, not happiness. Her lipstick matched the wine in her glass, deep red, slightly smeared. Everything was fine. Until it wasn't. My brother-in-law had just made some offhand joke about how marriage kills a man's libido. Something light, something forgettable. People chuckled. That's when Jenna, without even glancing in my direction, lifted her glass and added, "Oh please, some of us are still waiting for there to be a libido. I swear, there's nothing to be thankful for in bed." Laughter. Actual, goddamn laughter. Her sister nearly spit out her wine. One of her cousins tried to cover his mouth, but couldn't hide the grin. And Jenna? She just kept sipping, eyes locked on her glass like she hadn't just gut-punched me in front of everyone. Everyone laughed, except me. I didn't flinch. Didn't speak. Just smiled. A small, closed-mouth smirk. I think that unnerved her more than if I'd flipped the table. Because Jenna thrives on control, especially the kind that's wrapped in plausible deniability. The "oh, it was just a joke" control. The lighten up, you're too sensitive kind. She expected me to chuckle awkwardly, to look sheepish and play along like the good little emasculated husband. Instead, I took a slow sip of my drink and gave her a look that said everything. She knew that look. She just didn't know what it meant this time. I stayed silent the rest of dinner, playing the role. Passed the potatoes. Nodded along to football talk. Let her keep performing. But under the table, my fingers were locked around my phone, checking that the last piece of my plan had clicked into place. Because the joke wasn't the beginning. It was the final straw. For months, I'd been collecting fragments, glimpses into a world she thought she was hiding. I'm not one of those guys who snoops through phones or stalks their wives out of insecurity. But there's a line between trust and blindness. And the moment I saw her phone light up at 2 a.m. with a text that said, "Still thinking about that kiss," I stopped being blind. I didn't confront her. Didn't accuse. I studied. Jenna was never clumsy with secrets. She didn't have to be. She thought I was too passive to ever question her. That's the problem with someone like her. She's always looking for an enemy that fights back. She doesn't know what to do with a man who watches. I started watching. Late nights at the gym. Silent trips to get wine. Sudden smiles while reading messages on mute. I let it all slide past me like wind. But I wasn't just watching. I was preparing. Tonight, she expected to humiliate me and go home to sleep off the wine in our bed, my bed. But the night wouldn't end the way she thought. Not by a long shot. What she didn't know was that 3 days ago, I synced her iCloud to an old iPad we used to keep in the kitchen. She forgot it even existed. That's where I'd been watching her messages populate in real time. Her little digital diary of deceit. Most of them weren't explicit. She wasn't that careless. But people who live in secrets always get sloppy. One photo. One restaurant check-in that didn't match her story. One playlist called Ours. It was enough. It told me everything I needed to know. I even knew his name. And here she was, grinning like a cat at a feast, thinking she'd just scored points in a private game she didn't realize I'd been playing too. After dinner, as everyone moved to the living room, Jenna leaned in and whispered, "You okay, babe? You look tense." I leaned closer, brushed a crumb from her collarbone, and whispered back, "No worries. I'm just saving my appetite for later." She smiled at that. Smug. Delighted. But her smile faltered when I added, "You'll see." Then I walked into the kitchen to help with dishes, calm as ever. She had no idea the storm had already started, and she was standing dead center in its path. I didn't sleep that night. Not from rage. Not from pain. I wasn't pacing, clenching fists, or screaming into a pillow. I just lay there. Awake. Eyes open. Listening to the sound of her breathing. She had passed out in our bed with one hand still clutching her phone, the other resting on her stomach like a satisfied queen after the feast. Maybe she'd laugh again in the morning. Maybe she'd make another joke about how uptight I am, how men are so fragile when you tease them. But I wasn't feeling fragile. I was focused. I stared at the ceiling and let every memory file itself into place. I remembered the first time I felt it, that flicker of suspicion. It was subtle. A comment from her about how she needed space. That she was craving individuality. It sounded like something her therapist might have told her. Something that sounded harmless but was actually the beginning of distance. Then came the gym obsession. A new trainer. One I never met. Then the late-night wine runs. A second bottle of wine hidden behind the canned tomatoes. I don't even like wine. And finally, the iCloud sync. I didn't have to hack anything. She used the same Apple ID we created years ago when we still thought sharing meant trust. All I had to do was dust off that old iPad and log in. A few minutes later, every message, calendar reminder, note, and photo came streaming in. She never noticed. She didn't realize how small the world becomes when you stop believing you're invincible. The man's name was Greg. It didn't hit me like a hammer, it was more like a dull thud. Greg, the divorced, fun uncle from her friend Emily's wine group. He'd been at our house twice in the last year. Once for a game night. Once for a barbecue. Quiet guy. Laughed at my jokes. Wore a Rolex he couldn't afford and called himself a consultant. I remembered catching him glancing at her during charades. A second too long. But I dismissed it. Guys, look. And Jenna? She liked being looked at. But now I saw it clearly. She liked being chosen. And Greg? He was her choice. I read enough of their messages to know it had been going on for a while. Almost 7 months. What surprised me was how careful she was. There were no naked photos. No outright declarations. Just enough space between words to claim innocence. But it was there. You made me forget I was even married. I hate waking up alone. Wish I was with you, even if we're just watching Netflix and hiding. I read each line twice. Not because I didn't believe them, but because I was studying. Looking for her language. Learning the rhythm of her secrets. Greg was married too. Divorced now, actually. His ex-wife, Lauren, had moved to a different state after he emotionally checked out. He told Jenna he was misunderstood. Misjudged. Classic. That's what she fell for. The man who claimed to be broken but knew how to make her feel whole, at least for a few nights a week, whenever she could sneak away and call it spin class. I didn't confront her. I never asked. I started planning. First, the finances. I froze the discretionary card she used for self-care. I rerouted mail to my office. Shifted money from our joint account into a personal one she didn't know existed. Then I called my friend Marcus. He's not a private investigator, but he might as well be. Marcus has worked in cybersecurity for a decade. He owed me one. And he doesn't ask a lot of questions, which I appreciated. In 2 days, Marcus had a neat little folder. Not just phone records. Not just messages. But location pings. Shared Uber trips. Hotel bookings. Dinners billed to my own credit card when she lost hers and asked to borrow mine. One of those dinners was with Greg. A nice sushi place we used to go to for anniversaries. You know what gets me? She even ordered my favorite roll. The last piece fell into place unexpectedly. A week before Thanksgiving, her friend Emily called me. We hadn't spoken in a while. Emily always had this edge to her, like she enjoyed watching other people's lives unravel as long as hers stayed polished. But this time she sounded different. Hesitant. Hey, just so you know, she said, Greg's going to be at dinner Thursday. Jenna invited him. Just watch the way they talk to each other. That's all. I said nothing. But in that moment, I realized something. Emily wasn't warning me because she cared. She was warning me because she wanted a front row seat to the explosion. Jenna had surrounded herself with people like that. People who smiled while planting landmines. But I wasn't stepping on them. I was planting my own. The week after Thanksgiving, things between Jenna and me felt warmer. She kissed me on the cheek before heading to work. She brought home Thai food one night, something I liked. She even asked if I wanted to watch one of those dumb true crime shows she's always glued to. For a second, I think she believed the dinner joke had blown over. Maybe she thought I'd buried my pride like a good husband. Like always. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't hurt. I was busy. She didn't notice the empty drawers in my home office, or the absence of our financial files. Didn't question why her emails weren't syncing to our shared calendar anymore. Didn't notice when I swapped out her keycard access to our safety deposit box. I let her keep thinking she was in control. That her little inside joke with Greg stayed safely in the shadows. And then I played my last move. Her birthday was coming up. She mentioned once, offhandedly, years ago, that she wanted to stay at this glass-walled cabin just outside of Asheville. Back then, I said it was too expensive. Not practical. But now? Now it was perfect. I booked the weekend. Sent her a private invitation. Digital, sleek, romantic. I worded it like a love letter. Said I wanted to reconnect. Start fresh. Heal from whatever distance we've had. She ate it up. Her text back was full of emojis and fake sweetness. Wow, this is unexpected. Can't wait. I smiled reading it. Not because I believed it, but because I'd already forwarded the cabin address to someone else. Lauren, Greg's ex-wife. She and I had exchanged just 3 messages before she called me. I didn't have to say much. Just sent her a photo of a familiar arm around my wife at a sushi bar. She didn't respond for 10 minutes. When she did, her message was short and sharp. I'll drive. Turns out, she never really got closure. Never got to say what needed to be said. Greg had ghosted her emotionally for a year, then blamed her for being distant. She said something in her voice that stuck with me. He doesn't fight, he disappears. I knew exactly what she meant. The day before the trip, Jenna was radiant. She put extra effort into her outfit, packed 2 different bathing suits, and made sure to leave her phone charger in her purse. The woman didn't forget a single thing, except the fact that the man she thought she was getting away with lying to had become the man orchestrating her fall. We drove together. The entire way, she hummed to the music, leaned her head back, made little jokes like everything was new again. I played along, talked softly, held her hand at red lights. She didn't notice the second key fob in the glove compartment, or the voice recorder still nestled under her seat from 2 months ago, still silently recording, still feeding files into my cloud account. When we arrived at the cabin, she gasped like it was her first breath in weeks. "Oh my God, this is gorgeous," she whispered. "Happy birthday," I said. I watched her step inside, look around, take it all in. She lit candles, pulled out wine, put on her playlist. It would have been a perfect night. But the thing about perfection is, it's always temporary. Right around 7:30, I told her I had a surprise. She grinned. "Oh, should I be scared?" "No," I said, walking over to the side table. "You should be honest." I pulled out the folder. Black cover. Thick stack. Printed screenshots, photos, timelines. GPS logs. Message summaries. Even her Uber receipts. She blinked. Her smile broke. What is this?" she asked, voice already shrinking. "This," I said, placing it on the counter, "is everything I know. Every lie. Every excuse. Every location where you went to yoga, but ended up in hotel rooms with Greg." She didn't touch it. Didn't move. I kept my voice even. "You've got about 10 minutes before we're not alone anymore. You should start reading." She looked at me, eyes wide. "What do you mean, not alone?" "I invited someone else," I said. "Someone who deserves the same honesty I just gave you." She stepped back. "You invited Greg?" I stared at her for a long moment, then slowly shook my head. "No. Someone who used to love him, and who deserves to see what kind of man he still is." Her knees actually buckled. She gripped the edge of the counter. "You're insane," she whispered. "No," I said. "I'm awake." I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. She heard it too. Her head snapped toward the window as Lauren's car came into view. She looked like vengeance in jeans, no screaming, no drama. Just sharp eyes, a folder of her own under one arm, and a resolve that made Jenna backpedal like a criminal waiting on a verdict. "I'm not doing this," Jenna hissed. I nodded toward the door. "You don't have to, but you will listen." And for the first time in months, she didn't have anything smart to say. She just stood there, waiting, exactly where I wanted her. Lauren didn't knock. She walked in like she owned the place. Calm, deliberate steps on the hardwood, her boots echoing against the silence. Her eyes didn't go to me. They went straight to Jenna. For a split second, I saw something flicker in Jenna's face. Recognition. Maybe guilt. But mostly fear. "Lauren," she said, barely above a whisper. "What are you?" "You know exactly what I'm doing here," Lauren cut in. She set her folder down on the coffee table beside mine. "Greg says hi, by the way. Or, he would, if he knew I was here." Jenna looked at me then, but I didn't offer her a lifeline. I sat down, folded my hands, and waited. This wasn't my part anymore. It was theirs. Lauren stepped closer. "You lied to me. You lied to him. And I want to hear you say it. Out loud. Just once." "Lauren, I never meant." "You did," she snapped. "You meant every moment you stole. Every night you snuck off while pretending to be someone's wife. You're not the victim here, Jenna. You're just predictable." Jenna flinched at that word. Of all the things she could stomach, being caught, being exposed, being called predictable, that hit deeper. Jenna built her personality on being sharp, elusive, hard to read. But Lauren cut right through it. I watched them from the couch, letting the silence hang between volleys. Jenna finally spoke. "We didn't plan it. It just happened. He made me feel. Don't, Lauren said, raising a hand. Don't you dare say he made you feel alive. Or seen. Or any of that tired crap you tell yourself to avoid taking responsibility. Jenna looked like she'd swallowed glass. I stood then, slowly, and walked toward the window, watching the forest breathe quietly outside. You know what gets me? I said, not looking at either of them. You used to get on me for keeping score. For remembering too much. But I never needed to remember it all, Jenna. I just needed to notice. I turned back around. And you know what I noticed? You didn't just betray me. You didn't just lie. You enjoyed it. Her eyes brimmed, but nothing fell. Not yet. You laughed at me, I said, stepping closer. At that dinner table. You humiliated me in front of people I grew up with. You fed them a punchline like I was some joke you'd outgrown. I didn't mean she started. But you did. I cut in. And that's the part I've come to terms with. You meant it. The way Greg meant it when he told you he was finally with a real woman. I read that message too, by the way. The one you sent after the hotel in Charlotte. She broke then. A single tear slipped down. But I didn't stop. I planned this weekend to give you what you've clearly been craving. A performance. One last act. One final show. But this time, you're not the one directing it. Lauren stepped forward, lifting her own folder. This is for the board at Greg's consulting firm. You know, the one that prides itself on integrity? Turns out they don't like their senior consultants being involved in personal scandals, especially not ones involving married clients. Jenna turned white. And as for you, Lauren added, I forwarded a few of your messages to Emily. You know, the one you were venting to about how you wanted to replace her in the wine club leadership. She wasn't impressed. Jenna's voice was small. You don't have to do this. Lauren shrugged. No, I want to. Because women like you make women like me look weak. And I'm not. She turned to me then, the steel in her expression softening. I'll let you finish this. She left the way she came. No parting shot. No slammed door. Just silence in her wake. Jenna sat down on the armrest of the couch like her legs couldn't hold her. She was trembling. But not from grief. From loss of control. I can explain, she whispered. No, I said. You can't. You can justify. You can spin it. But you can't explain it. Because none of this was an accident. You chose every moment. She tried again. But I'm not here to punish you, I said, calm now. This isn't vengeance. This is liberation. I picked up my phone and showed her the email on screen. The finalized divorce agreement. The clean financial cut. The property split. The note I had added. No contest. Irrevocable. Effective immediately. She stared at it. You already filed? I nodded. 2 weeks ago. Before Thanksgiving. I just wanted to give you this weekend first. So you'd remember it. Her shoulders sagged. I don't want this to end like this. That's the thing, Jenna. I stepped past her. You don't get to choose how this ends. I picked up my coat. You only got to choose how it fell apart. I left her there. Not out of cruelty, but because there was nothing left to say. When someone shows you exactly who they are, the conversation ends. There's no debate. No bargaining. You just nod, turn around, and walk away. I didn't drive home that night. I went to a hotel about 30 minutes down the mountain, nothing fancy. Just a clean bed, silence, and the weight of someone else's lies no longer pressing against my chest. I ordered a club sandwich and slept for 10 hours. Deep, uninterrupted, dreamless. It was the best sleep I'd had in a year. The next morning, I woke up to 5 missed calls. 3 from Jenna. 2 from her sister. No voicemails, just the kind of desperate silence that follows when people realize they've lost control of the story. I didn't return them. Instead, I called the attorney to confirm the next steps. By noon, she'd been served officially. By 3, the locks on the house had been changed. I'd already transferred the title to a rental condo we'd co-owned under my name. Jenna didn't know it existed. That was now mine. The house, the one she'd slowly poisoned with lies and candles and overpriced wine, would be on the market by the end of the month. She tried reaching out over the next few days. Messages like, I never wanted to hurt you. And we can still talk, can't we? All of it reeked of ego dressed up as remorse. I didn't respond. What could she say that hadn't already been said between hotel sheets and half-lies whispered through text? Greg didn't last long, by the way. A week after our weekend at the cabin, I heard through Lauren that he ghosted Jenna entirely. Blocked her number. Told mutual friends that she was too much drama. His company cut him loose quietly. Something about conduct violations. And her little wine circle? Imploded. Emily didn't just remove her from the group. She spread every detail Jenna had foolishly shared in private chats. Turns out, when the queen falls, the court scatters. I didn't revel in it. I wasn't keeping tabs because I needed to see her suffer. I just wanted confirmation that the storm I walked through wasn't imagined, that the quiet rage I carried wasn't unfounded. And it wasn't. I bumped into her once. A few months later. Grocery store parking lot. She looked tired. Thin. Her glow replaced by this brittle kind of stillness, like someone holding their breath for too long. She spotted me from across the lot and froze. She didn't wave. Didn't speak. I didn't either. I just nodded once, got in my car, and drove away. Because that's the difference between her and me. She needed an audience. She needed applause and attention and a stage. I needed peace. And I found it. Funny how that works. All those years I thought I was the problem, that I wasn't enough, that something in me had gone dull, and she just drifted away because of it. But now I see it clearly. She wasn't drifting. She was digging. A slow, calculated excavation of everything we built, until the only thing left was the performance. And when the lights finally cut, and the curtain fell, all that remained was a woman in a pretty dress with nothing real left to hold. The last time I saw Jenna was from behind. She was loading groceries into the back of her car, and the wind caught her coat, blowing it open just long enough for me to see the sweater she was wearing. It was mine. One she'd stolen from my closet years ago, and claimed it was just more comfortable. I almost laughed, but I didn't. I just turned the music up and drove on. You know, back at that dinner table, when she made that joke about there being nothing to be thankful for in bed, I didn't flinch because I knew something she didn't. I knew the one thing she was never going to have again. Me. My silence. My presence. My warmth. Turns out, she was right. There really wasn't anything to be thankful for, until the moment I walked away. And finally, I was.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.